here.
Oh, I thought you got a cushion. Thank you.
Yeah. There's a seat here, Chris, if you want.
Yeah, if you want to grab it.
This is my friend Leslie.
Oh, it's not. Believe that.
All right, so we'll start in about, a couple minutes. But thank you all for coming. I believe I have a pitcher of water and some cups back there. If you get thirsty, it is BYOB here, so if you brought your whiskey, you can drink it. There's a show tonight at 9 o'clock, or 8:30, unfortunately. So at 8 o'clock, we're going to do all the big changeover. So we highly recommend Glen Park Station and various fine establishments in the neighborhood for late night hanging out and chatting about Louise's dramatic life. So yeah, it's going to be.
Maybe it used to be.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the world so they can see it, and then yeah, I think and then we'll get going. Okay. So
Okay.
in the end, we'll get that going.
Yeah, if you're wanted by the FBI, keep your mask in it.
That's true. I haven't seen you in ages. I guess I can break mine. Let's go.
Oh, they have algorithms for that.
Yeah, but they're the FBI, thank God, so no problem.
Ooh, cruel.
You're already in there.
How are you doing, Chris? I know. I'm already in there. The FBI. You too, Chris.
I hope so. I'd be,
Yeah, I'd be disappointed to find out that I wasn't, yeah.
I didn't do my job.
I'm doing okay.
Congratulations. I feel like I should listen to you.
I still have this, so doing like doctor's appointments. Could be worse.
Is it respiratory or?
Yeah, yeah. But I did a lung function test with the doctor. But I'm gonna go see.
Just drink more whiskey.
Probably a good idea.
That's comforting.
Yeah, how's your book? So, have you
Still
tried,
pitching it.
did you try Spite and Zylo?
Not yet. I'm going to.
Leslie was published by.
I went to AWP this year.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Oh, good, that's good, yeah, then you've got a lot more distance.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I can't really check the level of this noise at the back of the room and be here talking on it at the same time. Can you all hear me a little bit at least? Okay. I can adjust it more for Louise when she gets rolling, but for the time being, you're all right? Good. Well, welcome to Bird and Beckett. We're very pleased to have Louise Nair read today. Here, I'll do this in case anybody out there is lip reading in the land of the internet. So this is a live stream. You can tweet home to your, mother-in-law or whatever, and say, get on the Bird and Beckett homepage, and there's a little video screen there. And tonight when you get home, you can watch it all over again because it's going to stay up there into eternity. As Louise's book climbs the charts, we'll make the video screen a little bigger every time it goes up a notch. So yeah, so we've known Louise pretty much since we opened the store, as far as I can recollect, really. For the people out in the world, this neighborhood's called Glen Park, and Louise and Jim live just up around the way. Saw their two daughters when they were little and when they were bigger, and now I don't see them very often because they're off some other direction. Anyway, she's written a lot of books along the way, including some poetry that has gotten very high acclaim early on, then books on various topics having to do with writing, I think, and she's done a lot of instruction to individuals as well as through City College. We're always happy when there's any City College, San Francisco City College representation here. But I think she's retired out of City College now. So this is her second major memoir that I know of. The first one was called Burned, and it was a big success. So I think Oprah named it as like a really cool book. I think they call it they brand it Oprah Great Reads, but we know it as Oprah's Really Cool Books. She and I talked about that, and she decided to go with the marketing department there. So what else? She teaches at Ollie. She got 6 California Arts Council grants. Not bad, not bad. Get her to write your grant proposals. As a poet alone, she got that. She teaches at Ollie. She's written this one now. So, yeah, I won't say anything about the book. She'll have something to say about that. So, you ready to come up here? Yep. All right, great. So, I'll set that there. Let me get to that end of the room before you really start, so I can make sure that it looks like it's going out properly. Here, let me do this so you can get through a little, that way, I think. Okay. All right, great. All right.
Okay.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you to all of you for coming. You're from so many parts of my life. I mean, it's just amazing. There are 2 people here who I knew when my daughters were babies. So, anyway, it's great. People from book groups, City College, the Grotto, yoga. I'm probably missing people, but thank you again for coming. It's kind of daunting to actually have a book out. And I think as I've gotten older, I realize, the amount of work it takes to get to this place. And, it was probably somewhere about 8 years, that I wrote a piece on Morocco. And I tried to get it published, and the person said, oh, it doesn't have enough of an arc. Which I hate. It doesn't have enough of an arc. Okay, what's an arc? How can I make it an arc? Then it got rejected again. And then the woman who rejected it said, well, maybe it could be a book. And I was not planning on doing memoir anymore, but I just thought, okay, and it just took over. And it was interesting. First of all, I want to thank Eric and for this amazing bookstore and for, having me read here. But also for what he said about my adventurous or dangerous life, because that's, I think, why I wrote the piece on Morocco, because what, quote, I think there's a couple of seats, yeah. Because what, I was a middle class, maybe even upper middle class, young privileged woman growing up in New York City. And, I had all the things that I was supposed to do in life. And then the 60s and the 70s hit. And I just changed. I actually hitchhiked in Morocco. We had this belief, or I should say a lot of people in America, that, we could stop wars, have peace in the world. We're all one. I can be in Morocco and I'm just the same person as anybody else. And of course, there was civil rights and all of these things going on. And I got swept up in that in a wonderful way. But I also think there was a certain naivete when we went to different countries and just thought, oh yeah, we can just hang out and be with the real people without really understanding the culture or what went on. But the book's called Narrow Escapes, and we've all had narrow escapes, whether it's near-death experiences, illness, almost falling off a mountain. My younger daughter's a rock climber, so I see some of those pictures, which I don't want to look at. But all of us have gone through something, and then, you knock on wood and you say, okay, I made it through. We've all survived. We're all here. And so part of it is about the narrow escapes at this time in my life when I was putting myself out there in terms of danger and travel. And the other part of the narrow escapes has to do with, and many of you here know that my parents were burned when I was 4, and that kind of runs through the book a bit. and they escaped a fire in a cellar. And it's kind of miraculous that they got out of there and they survived, even though my mother was disfigured facially. But they made it out and they lived very long lives. So it's kind of a layered sense of narrow escape. So there's a lot of adventure, and there's also threading through the accident. The other thing about Morocco was it was unbelievable to be in that culture and to see a Berber village and to see camel trains on, along the beach. So much of it was thrilling and beautiful, yet I had no idea what I was doing. And I remember the Ogden Nash poem, "In the world of mules, I think there are no rules." And I love that. It was a time where we were rebelling against a lot of things, whatever bourgeois values. I mean, I look back and my parents were had very similar values to mine, but it didn't matter. We just rebelled. That's what it felt like. And a lot of it was just trying to change the world for the better, too, and to make a more peaceful, happier world for everybody. But what I thought I'd do is read a couple of sections. And this is probably one of the most dramatic. I was in Marrakesh. I don't know if you remember the Crosby, Stills, Nash song, Marrakesh Express. I was so excited to be there. I was in the souk, which is a big place where everybody was eating at night, and I ate salad, even though everybody said, don't eat salad, because I'm not a Moroccan. I don't have the whatever it takes. So I got very sick. And I was also traveling with somebody who wasn't a close friend. And I think that's the other thing in those days. It was like, yeah, I want to go here and hitchhike. Oh, you want to come with me? It wasn't, I don't really know this person. And we're not really necessarily close. And in some ways, it was a very hard time with her. But she took me to a clinic in the Moroccan side of town. We didn't want to be in the European side of town. And at the clinic, there was a doctor. I waited for a long time, who finally called my name. And when I walked in, because of who I was, an American, he just said, I can't treat you. These are my people. I mean, there were tons of people in the waiting room, very sad, very sick. And so this starts when, instead of my friend taking me to the European side of town, she took me back to the hostel. Jacqueline walked back with me, but now she was gone. I think she went shopping. I managed to climb to the top bunk again, but my legs shook on each rung of the ladder. I wondered if my hands would hold me. I collapsed onto the thin mattress, smelling of my sickly, fetid, feverish sweat. A few words spun around and around, but it was a grinding sound I was hearing. My mind felt separated from itself, like puzzle pieces that don't fit, a round piece shoved into a square hole, all the edges ragged like a rip in my stocking. Put nail polish on the rip, I could hear my mother's voice, bossy, comforting. Don't throw them out. We've become too much of a throwaway society. I reached for my water bottle, thin, clear water, a bottle like a baby, but no one held me. I was in a tunnel of animal hides. I could hear drums like at the souk the night before. People came and went, in and out of the room. No one noticed me. The room was empty. Even moving my arms was difficult. I saw my daddy standing in the doorway of my bedroom where I grew up, then heard him recite Shakespeare. Good night, sweet princess. Let flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. But angels signified a darkness I didn't want to go through. I'm just 20, I thought to myself. Just 2 decades, 2 sets of 10, 4 sets of fingers on my hand. Then I was Tinker Bell, the tiny fairy from Peter Pan, who held a mirror near her lit by a lamp. She was always surrounded by light. In Peter Pan, when Tinker Bell's light was dying, all who loved her clapped for her, and her light returned like an epiphany. At first it flickered, then died, but then suddenly, like a heart that starts beating again, the light surrounded her, and she would soar. My sister and I watched Peter Pan on TV and would clap and clap for Tinker Bell. How could such a sweet being die? Why did anyone die? I shivered and prayed I could keep some water in me. I lay still like a rock and tried not to move. Maybe if I stopped moving, I'd get better. My breaths were thready and shallow. Had I been bad? I ate salad at the souk. I shouldn't have had salad at the souk. That was bad. Why did my parents return with burns all over their bodies? Did I whine the day they were burned? Not take a nap? Refuse to tie my shoes myself? One little stringy shoelace over the next? Count to 10 wrong? My eyes drowned with tears as shadows raged across the walls. My sister Annie and I played flashlight tag at night when we couldn't sleep. But these shadows came from the dark and not from the light, and my mouth tasted metallic. I couldn't even spit. I couldn't even say the words, "Help me." The dorm had emptied of people, only scattered knapsacks covering the 5 other bunk beds. I conjured up all the people who loved me, even my dead grandparents I'd never met, my Jewish grandparents on my dad's side, who came from Vilnius and died before I was born, Lena, David, Uncle Philip, who died when he was 22, such a loss, such a waste. And then the ones I knew in this life, Reverend Joseph and Fanny Daubert, my mother's parents, my mother's father who called me his little buttercup and bought me books about animals at the 8th Street bookstore. Mom, Dad, Annie, and then the names of best friends, Nancy, Ken. Light still flickered chaotically on the wall above me. Clap louder, I whispered to myself. Clap louder as I thought of each new name. I heard the claps, quiet, and then thunderous claps, like the drum beats in the souk. Then I heard the door open. A tall woman entered, long red hair and blue eyes, like my Aunt Rusty, who cared for me when my parents were burned. Aunt Rusty must have sent her. Perhaps she rode here on wisps of Aunt Rusty's red hair. She put her things on her bed and then saw me. I lifted myself up for a minute and stared at her warm blue eyes. She plopped her stuff on a free bed, then came over to me. You're very, very sick. This is serious. I'm a nurse. Is it dysentery? She had an English accent. Yes, I said, my lips parched, slightly bloody and so cracked that it hurt to talk. She rummaged in her purse and found charcoal tablets. These will stop the diarrhea, but you need fluids. I don't remember much more about that day. Bowls of chicken soup and bottled water emerged from out of nowhere. For the first time in 3 nights, I didn't get up in the dark to use the bathroom, my legs shaking each time, trying so hard to steady myself. I rested all through the next day, the colors that had danced across the wall now turning white again. I took the charcoal tablets, slept for hours, and drank fluids, little by little getting my strength return, my angel, my nurse, my miracle. So that's that section. Oh, thank you. And I'm alive. But I mean, that's the thing in life. There are so many, the helpers, the angels, the miracles, and, knock on wood, they come at the right time. So, I mean, that's really throughout the book. So, I guess it's partly just noticing that when it happens, because it probably happens to us every day in some little way, shape, or form. So I go to Morocco and then I come back to New York. And part of New York has to do with my parents, in some ways dealing with this, childhood incident. And what's kind of interesting to me is a lot of times you don't even realize what your childhood was like until you're grown up and like, woo, that was strange, or that, wasn't supposed to be the way it was. And so around 19 or 20, I started having panic attacks. And so I knew that I had to work on something. And in some ways, I think about it, and I was lucky that I had panic attacks at 20 because it sent me to get help at an early age. So, but that part of the book is going to Buffalo to get my MFA in writing, and then on a whim to drive cross country. A friend who actually ended up living in an ashram for 40 years, a very close friend, she called me and she said, "Do you want my room in Berkeley, California? I'm leaving." I hadn't talked to her for a while, and I said, "Sure." And then I called my mother, and, I said, "Oh, I'm moving to Berkeley." And my mother actually was a big adventurer, and she really liked, independence and doing things. But there was a catch in her voice. It was like, "Do you have a job?" And my father was not happy at all. "What are you doing?" But, that journey was a pivotal one. I never thought I would stay out here. And it was very poignant because I still feel like a New Yorker in many ways. I've kind of made my peace with being here, but there was always that pull. So in a way, I left home. And, with all the, how a lot of people feel when they leave where they grow up, or people who leave the countries they grew up in. So I left home, and after Buffalo, I got, again, a narrow escape. A friend sold me a car, a 68 Camaro with a mag stripe and a crucifix, which I took off because I thought, I'm not Christian enough for a crucifix. And I had just gotten my driver's license, and I actually drove cross country with no air conditioning and no radio, and it was about 95 degrees half the time. But it was an on-the-road kind of, Kerouac, poetic. Remember just thinking of poems as I drove. So this section, part of this section of the book, is a kind of liberation, and a lot of people come to California and recreate their lives. And, in some ways, that's what I was doing. So I'll just read a short piece. I actually drove to a junkyard because my car was overheating and I needed a piece that nobody had. So I felt very proud that I drove by myself into a junkyard. I'll just read a little of this. The car part place looked like the end of the world. I knew cockroaches would take over the world after a nuclear explosion, and imagined albino ones crawling across the world. I had had albino cockroaches on McDougal Street in Greenwich Village when I lived there until I talked to them. This is true. "Please don't show your little white shells and whiskers when I'm around. I don't want to spray toxins." Miraculously, that seemed to work. I wondered if car parts would come in as a close second to what would be left after the mushroom cloud. This place was massive, bigger than any graveyard I had seen. Broken down cars sat like skeletons, turned up and turned down. Pieces of cars littered the landscape. So the man who ran the place had a little apartment. I mean, he was almost like a lighthouse keeper. And he got me the part, and he said, I need to keep that on for 400 miles and then check it out again. So I washed my cup. I asked for some water. I washed my cup and placed it on the drying rack, then walked back out to the car. Got it on there. It'll work, he said. Not exactly the right size, but it'll do. I attached it good. Now you might check next 400 miles, but it's attached. Thank God, I said a little too loudly. It was scary when the car overheated on the highway. Bet it was, bet it was. Maybe he was thinking, and she's alone and all, but he didn't say anything. His hands were in his pocket, and he was surveying the driveway. Another car was pulling in. I paid him the $20 he asked for, got back inside the car, and looked at my map. I was on my way. On the road again, the black hood neatly over the radiator, protecting me, protecting the car, a new talisman of sorts. New York City, where my heart had started inside my mother's body and outside her body at New York Hospital, now faded away. The further I went, with the change in time, the earlier it became, like being born again. What was freedom? Lack of restrictions? Out here on the road, no one was telling me what to do or what not to do. School, a boyfriend who would become a husband, a job, enough money, a place to live, a bank account, publications of my writing in the right magazines, the ones that would lead to bigger and better magazines, everything always bigger and better, as if life were to be one great crescendo rising to some peak, like Everest, where I would stake my claim, drape a big flag that I'd made it to the top. Voices swirled in my head at times, the shoulds of life. In the car, between places, the voices descended into a soft whisper. The time inside my Camaro was all mine. Crazy images spun through my brain, trees like dancers, the blue sky a silken robe, the cars in front of me, huge beetles, the road an alleyway to my heart not broken on this stretch of road. Maybe my heart had never really been broken when my parents disappeared. I wanted to believe that. I was always trying to get to an unbroken heart. These thoughts, Olympic runners of the air, like a spinning wheel or a player piano, went so fast I couldn't catch them, but I knew they were there and all mine. Thank you. Do you know what time it is? Somebody gonna think if I should. Okay. You know, I think I was just going to open it up for a couple of questions instead of reading more. But just to say, the book does have a lot of goodbyes, and it has my mother in it, who always seems to take over every book I write. But that's okay. So I just thought I'd open it up to anybody about writing memoir, questions, and then Leslie.
So one of the things I loved about the book is the details. And these events happened a long time ago.
Right.
So did you keep journals, or how did you go back to those memories?
Okay, I did keep journals. And actually, at one point, I wanted to add a lot of my poetry in there. Somebody suggested that. And I had tons of journals with poems. Other details, like when I drove cross country, I did research.
Okay.
You know, what does this town look like? And of course, things have changed. But yeah, I did a lot of research and details and embellished, I guess would be the. Yeah, but that's a good question. Anybody else?
Yeah,
Yeah, Jackie.
my question is similar to hers, because I wanted to ask that question, but I'll just zero in a little bit more, particularly when you recall all those images when you're in that bunk bed so sick.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that's real invention, isn't it? I mean,
that isn't.
you weren't writing journals and
Yeah, I probably couldn't have thought about anything then. No, that was invention. But I do remember, hallucinations on the walls, and I remember how I felt, how sick I felt. But yeah, some of the stuff like my mother coming in, and I do remember, and then the nurse. I mean, it was unbelievable when that nurse walked in. It was just unbelievable. And I remember that. I remember she had red hair like my aunt. So a combination of invention. Yeah.
I don't want to give up my position here yet. I want to also commend you for those figures of speech that are just so startling. Like the idea as if life would be one crescendo.
Oh,
And there's
thanks.
something you say right after that too that was really meaningful. So I look forward to reading more of your work.
Well, thank you. And that brings up also the fact that I was a poet for many years, and then to try and write something with a plot, with some suspense, with characters, with dialogue, was really, really hard and a challenge. And yet, when I wrote this book, I thought, I need to put more of my husband's always saying that, I need to put more of my poetry in there. So I really worked on that more in this book, than the last memoir, just using some poetic language. And I remember I borrowed, actually from my friend Monica, I borrowed Ocean Vuong's book. I can't remember the name of it now.
On Earth we are breathing.
Yeah, exactly. And I opened it up, and I didn't steal anything, but I looked at words, and sometimes I'll do that. I used to have Toni Morrison's books and Isabel Allende's books just open on my bed, and I would take a word or a verb, when I was writing. So when your language gets stale, that's a great way of just pumping it up. So, yeah, Chris.
Yeah. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
To read it and loved what you read, and the Olympians of the air. That phrase really rings. I'm curious your reflections from writing this about risk and just kind of more the life of risk and the meaning of risk, both kind of then and now.
Yeah.
How
Did everybody hear that? He was asking about the meaning of risk, then and now. Yeah, I think when I wrote about Morocco, it was like, I can't believe I did that. I did some risky things physically. Like when I skied, I would ski on big moguls, and I like to go fast and things like that. So I would take physical risks, but I didn't take a lot of risks. But I think at that point, I just got swept up and excited by, woo, we can just put our thumbs out on the road, and there are lots of people doing it, and and it wasn't always safe. But I guess I wanted to believe it was safe. Now, I'm trying to take a little more risks now. I mean, which is kind of sounds funny, but in general, I'm fairly cautious. So, so this was a time when and maybe, and some of the risks I think were just wanting to, as I said in the beginning, just to believe that we're one world and we can be anywhere and feel safe. And sadly, that's not really what's happening right now between COVID and wars and all of that. But yeah, I think, I try and hold on to that, or that feeling. So maybe one more question, and then I guess, if I can sign some books for people too. So I want to leave time for that. Anybody else have a question? Yeah, Audrey. I know everybody here, just about, so it's kind of really fun.
I work on memoir kind of material too. Do you ever have any feelings about revealing other people's stuff, or pissing people off, or
Oh, sure, yeah.
revealing?
Yeah, so the question, if you couldn't hear it, is do I have feelings about revealing? Well, one thing is my sister, who's now like, she said to me, I'm not really in the book very much. And I said, don't you remember you told me you didn't want to be in this book? So definitely with her, I have some old boyfriends in the book, and I changed their names. And one congratulated me on the book, on Facebook, and I've not said anything. If he buys, I mean, I toned down one person just in case. But there's nobody else that's really, I would really feel like I would hurt their feelings. But when I wrote Burned, I checked things out with my cousins. I had them read it. And my sister, anybody, because I don't want to write something and then lose a friendship or a family member. But it's as we know when we teach it, it's tricky, and for ourselves. But it is a little daunting to reveal myself, because there's one. I didn't go into it too much, but an acid trip, and I think maybe 15 years ago, when I was teaching at City College and all of that, I'm not sure I would have written about that. I would have felt a little bit like, I don't know. But the students would have loved it. But yeah. Well, I think I probably should end. Unless, But I just want to say, because I teach memoir, anybody can write a memoir. It takes a lot of work. And there are all these different routes to publication, too. So, but, I feel very lucky that I worked on this enough and that it's out in the world. So, and I feel very lucky to have all of you here. So, thank you. So. Where should I sign from?
Why don't you sign from there?
Okay.
Maybe right down in front of the stage. And, just go ahead and get your book signed, and then I can sell it to you at the back for inflated prices.
Right. Well, we gotta support our local bookstore.
Let's see. I think we'll set them here, yeah? There's some copies.
tomorrow they're fixing it. Yeah, I actually got the butterfly app, but you have to get approval from the building manager individually. Which I but by late tomorrow, it should be good. AWP was great. Yeah, I met a lot of publishers. Hopeful. I mean, we'll see. Any of that hope is warranted, but it felt good. Yeah, I'll hang around as long as we don't obstruct her.
No, as soon as, actually, we used it with her before, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of coming to a head here. He wants to continue. No.
They have really good music here. Do you want me to hold it or you do it?
Oh, right.
You have a long shoulder. Yeah. I feel bad. I couldn't go to Heather's event, but it's like you have to choose. I went to her other podcast. Yeah, Medicine for Nightmares. Oh yeah. And I bought her book, AWP. We're in a coaching group together, so I hope she's not too mad.
I really need to get out.
I'm gonna try to go Saturday. Yeah. Oh, quick, okay.
I can get all of you. There we go. I'll take a couple. See if you like them.
So this is
You'll post it? I would post it. Oh, yeah, this is great. Okay, I will post it. Yeah, we can sort of go on. Oh, I know.
Do you want one? Yeah, you have Has somebody claimed? Yeah, here's more. Frankly, don't want to give up my spot in line. You know what? Save your spot. Let me check on the status of this one here.
Maybe it's because I think you have
Yeah, maybe it's right. Yeah. It just looks like that was the other one or something like that. Yeah. Emergency.
not go that direction. That was something else. But
I felt like
when I was at the Francis McDermott character, it's like, what?
We're also,
it's almost like she made a cameo.
I know. I thought it was really. I was like a little.
Sorry.
I get that. Now the other thing was I watched the Oscar start.
Here's one more. I feel like there should be another couple.
Oh, do we have to get a book?
I'm not sure when
Oh, he's scrounging up a book? We saw everything everywhere.
I have to put it in pen for you guys because we just kind of sat there and discussed it with our own little snacks.
I liked it when I saw it. I thought it was unusual and different, and I haven't gotten to any of those books. And so I really loved it. Oh, you so sweet. Thank you. I take the LA Times and I did a thing called Envelope. And I listened to a podcast with Todd Wheeler.
Oh, you're gonna stay for the music. Oh, yes.
It was so interesting. And I am so sorry that was
I am too. That didn't get a nod. I don't think. Did you get a nod? Maybe he was up for best director.
I don't know. Stanley has a friend, high school friend. My daughter was in there. And so we've been kind of following her. Even though she doesn't see it, right? A whole lot of so on they're hard. But still, I remember, but I know the University of Oregon, started some of the programs. And probably
that's gonna be cool, yeah. And he's gonna show me a volcano that he's Caribbean island called it too. Where Jamaica Kincaid comes from. There's a writer. No, Antigua, and then it's also small. Well, not tiny, but medium sized. I don't know about Antigua.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think we could go there. So I think it was on the other side of the city, that island. So we were in one area, but
Jordan, no,
we have to go like,
not that kind of golf. I need a therapist.
No, I didn't.
I think good is that I didn't understand that. But I also
go to
like
Europe.
the writing.
Yeah, but like since then, I feel like there's been.
Oh yeah, we played those. It's just that I have that memory that really when you did. But we played those little make-out movies a couple of times. But that was still a long time ago. Yeah.
No, you know what? I've seen it since. Oh, sure. I saw you play solo set with Temescal Arts.
Oh, yeah, sure. But everything before the pandemic.
He's in elementary right now in
The world of
middle school. He's going to a big middle school, probably, if he goes to the middle school.
Oh, hey, Scott. Why don't you come through the back?
So there will be a transition.
I just was arbitrarily saying something.
Looks good? I'm trying to figure out
I used to play with here. And he was a good friend of Eric's,
how to
the owner here. And he passed away about 10 years ago.
maybe like
Cool that he has that picture.
this or something.
Yeah, he used to play here. This is a great place to Did you see me pop in?
I know, we're still in line here. I should probably get my mask.
Do there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I had my event got out at 7.
Yeah, they do.
And then I realized we were
Sometimes what comes up and
They actually have a
it's like, there's, I don't know, some
pretty good setup here.
Cisco has two events on 9th and 10th grade.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of
The
thing.
last gig I did with Carl here,
But I'm like,
I mixed it, I remixed it. Yeah, because so you know, and he does a multi-track.
yeah, if it wasn't the opposite of the artist's schedule, I would.
Hello.
Jordan?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. I think my friends are free on Saturday
All right.
too. I don't know. It's like, yeah.
And I'll be
Should be a day, sure.
It's just that I can't imagine it'd be like working in the lab,
Oh, for this
but with
one.
young kids.
Yeah, that's
I never
true.
looked like working in the English lab.
I
We're gonna do the same. He's the quarterback.
Oh my God, those kids do not want to be there.
My two positions were.
You're left back. I'm tail.
But it was good afternoon. And they liked me okay, so it was fine. Yeah, I don't know. I interviewed a
Center and left guard.
and I
High school,
no, for their college. In the English department. And then, where else? Oh, I just interviewed with the city of San Francisco. I just won.
Yeah, we did. Some nice bits with Carl.
I won it all. Good to see you. I'm just gonna freelance until I find the right. I got laid off. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was like some Cambodian restaurant.
Yeah, I don't want to just jump into something that's horrible.
I wish you good luck. You're so talented and you have so much to offer.
Thank you. I would like to think so.
You will know that once they interview you.
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, I'll keep an eye if there's any opening.
Oh yeah, let me know. Sure. Thank you. Bye, Abdul. Bye. Nice to meet you. Hi. How are you? That was nice reading. Yeah. Oh, that's okay. I kind of did it because everybody did it.
Why?
The mask.
Me too, that's my kid.
Mine's been coming down more and more these days.
Yeah.
Still,
But in a crowded, I know, in a crowded place, I still put it on to go.
I've been in
I need to knock on wood. I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't know, right? Because I've
you don't always know sometimes.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Do you have a book for me? Oh. I will go buy one. Okay.
I might have gotten the last one.
Oh, okay.
But you can ask them though. You can ask them.
It's ready. I can get one. I know where
Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
Hey, Tanya.
It's fine. I know where it's That's great, you sold out.
Do you need any help?
No,
Okay.
We all need a lot of help.
Oh my gosh.
It's just Barbara Streisand.
Yeah?
People who need people.
It is. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
That's the one you were reading from.
This is
I guess it's way before your time.
Well, I mean, I know. Yeah,
It has not been opened.
Since then, I gotta think about it a little bit.
Yes.
I feel lucky. I feel like I need a lot of people.
Well, I am
How are you over there?
You can head out now. I say context is everything.
Very happy with yeah, totally. Yeah. Let's see if Rose wants to come too.
Yeah, unless Eric mentioned something, or Jim and Louise.
You guys want to come?
Well, I appreciate you
Just
guys
get like a glass of wine or
doing this
something.
music.
Yeah, definitely.
This is an
I'm gonna see
opportunity
if I can grab Rose.
to play things that are
I got over here 10 minutes late for mostly. I'm glad I did.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Saturday was, I'm not sure if I can come Saturday. We're,
You ready for spring break, Francis?
Oh yeah, it's already spring break to me.
Yeah, this
I uploaded my stuff yesterday and
see, Abdul and Jen. You ever met him?
huh?
You ever met him? Yeah.
No, not in my class.
Family event.
I don't give exams.
And your former office mate.
Yep. Yep. I'll always call it our office.
It takes forever to come up with something good, so I'm
You
not gonna give people the excuse of
Yeah.
I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough time for quality.
Whatever that's
Oh, yeah, the Glen, whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I can't believe Glen Park,
Yeah.
what, bar and grill or something? Is it?
And with that,
Glen, there's only one.
I can say
Hey, Scott. I'm doing
Yeah, it's
I
right
don't
before-
grade.
before
I don't give you a
Before
grade.
you get to the burrito
I
place.
don't grade on quality.
Okay, so,
Just- It's
Scott.
public.
are we going?
It's up to you whether you want
Yeah.
standing out there representing me.
That's how we know each other. Yeah.
Very nice.
Have you ever met Jim? This is Scott, who
Hey, Scott.
taught Sarah.
You don't need these.
So we probably. I don't need those.
Oh, yeah.
Pardon me, no,
Assuming everything. Oh, it's hard, yeah.
sorry.
Oh no. Take your time.
Okay.
It seems like you had a very successful reading.
Yeah.
That was great. That was
You know, it's
really
always
great
like,
for
is
her.
anybody gonna come? And
I know that's what we're in the hot seat now.
I meant to lock the door so none of those people could leave.
Hey Eric, thank you for having us on this last minute.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I forgot your name, sorry.
Scott.
Sorry? Scott.
Yeah.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
So we sold 18, so there's probably 2 copies lurking somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Are you looking for a book or no?
Oh, no, yeah.
She's found what she needs. I think.
That's a good way to put it.
We might have.
Just seems from the outside.
I did, and he said, come look and ask Louise.
Here's some.
Oh, thanks.
so we'll meet for
Just need the computer.
So Louise, there's only one that's unaccounted for, so I may have it in my, my apartment. Which I can run it up. Whatever's easy.
So, if you don't mind, Scott has chat GBT is gonna play his parts.
I mean, it might be shit.
But somehow I don't think they're gonna find the context on the internet.
Don't understand.
I cannot quite understand meditations. Live at the Village Vanguard again.
Okay, let's see, where should I put my computer?
Technical question. You would not consider what you're doing AI or?
I have music stands.
Oh, me?
Oh. I think we're good. Do you need a music stand?
No, I'm all right. So what I have in mind is that you have an announcement mic here, which can double for the poet's mic.
Yeah.
Oops, that's going down on you. This thing needs to be tightened up. It's starting to fade. Is that a mic? Nice. Okay. So for your saxophone, let's see now. I had. Oh no, where'd it go? There was a mic. Hi.
How you doing,
See you,
Eric?
Bill. Hi.
Good to see you.
William. You go by Bill or William or both?
I go by Roper.
Roper. Okay, Roper. Hi.
Yeah. Or Jelly Billy.
Dilly dally. Okay. Now I could have sworn I put a mic on a. So for you, Roper, we're gonna put this.
You know, if it helps, I have a clip-on mic.
Well, that would work too. So what I initially had said was this to go over the bell, the horn, maybe. I didn't know where you'd be sitting at the time, so I got this over here. Or whatever. We don't have to use that mic if that doesn't look good for you.
Well, the only deal with the clip-on is you don't have to mess with.
So you
the
don't want,
space.
you only need the one clip-on mic, period? Or you want an extra one in front of the horn or anything like that?
Not in front of the horn. I'll be speaking, right? Will I?
Only if you want to.
Only if I want to.
Well, okay, we might be able to manage another talk mic. So, do you want
So
a
let's do-
second instrument mic?
No, not a second
No.
instrument.
Then let's
So-
get rid of this.
Yeah, we'll do the clip-on, and then that'll save that space.
Right, we'll just need to
Is
cord.
there a power
I
outlet
bought it,
anywhere?
so.
Yeah.
You have to ask Eric.
Oh, it's only right. It's only right. Let me
So
get-
Eric,
Actually, it seems to have been a
Scott
smart
needs
thing to
some
do.
AC.
All right, sure. I'm going to put this out to the front so I can get rid of it later. Easier.
Large groups. Hold on, hold
What
on.
am I doing there? There you go. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.
Oh, I say I have it with me, make sure I brought it.
So you don't need a very long cord for it because we'll just plug it right into this sink in front here.
It requires phantom
Yeah,
power.
no problem.
No problem?
Phantom power is on. I better turn that board off before we start plugging